Well, howdy. Seems to have been a bit of a stuff up going on there. I'm not an actual expert, obviously, on how this all this live stuff works, and I had to change it at last minute to webcam as opposed to live stream, which must have been a default situation, which it's never done to me before. And I lost my original title and description and so on. So that's a bit of a bugger, but that's how it seems to work with me and technology. Yeah, we got it sorted, mate. Don't you worry about that. So while I'm waiting for someone to come in, and hopefully there's somebody still interested in asking me questions. There's quite a few on this non sequitur show, which was a non-show, of course, where the topic was mostly about creation and various philosophies that go along with that, which to me, that's basically all just about anything ever is some kind of philosophy or another. I was sort of getting hammered with questions because, me, I'm a little bit out there sometimes with some of my particular, shall we say, I wouldn't call them beliefs necessarily. I'd call them best belief, best theory. I mean, there's no real correct term. Best suspicions, perhaps. Best intuitions. Best asbestos. Gives you cancer. Yeah, I know that my attitude seems to give a lot of people cancer because I am a little bit out there. I'm a little bit what you might call alternative. I think for myself, I don't believe in any particular dogma or school of thought. I believe there are many different schools of thought. In fact, I wrote down a quote, which I will use shortly, and put these on so I can read it. I don't go and bloody refresh now. Useless freaking laptop. Okay. And to finish with a quote I found on Facebook just a few days ago, or actually today, which is for a discussion I'm going to be using later when I do go onto the non-sec show and have a discussion with Professor Games. I'm going to be saying, a closed-minded person only believes in their own interpretation on life. A very open-minded person will take on board everyone's theory on life and dismiss none. And dismiss is put in quotes there, spelt with a capital as well. And I think the reason they've done that is because dismiss. It's like you've missed it and you've dissed it, so dismiss none. Therefore, having a much greater chance of possessing a real truth. Now, what is real truth as opposed to false truth? Well, being a philosopher as I am, that's a good question. Seems a bit silly, but I guess people can see this on the replay. So I am waiting for people to come in. But what's the difference between real truth and false truth? Well, obviously, there's no such thing as a false truth, is there? It's a false belief that what you think is true actually isn't. So I guess it all comes down, once again, to beliefs. So a false belief, as opposed to a true belief. Is there such a real separation, or is it just that trick of the mind? When there is that philosophical quote or thought which says, according to your beliefs, so it will be. I see somebody popped in there for a second and ran away again. Oh well, hi and bye. Anybody does want to come and say good day, more than welcome to come and say good day. That's what I'm doing this for, because my fingers, believe it or not, get tired of typing and typing and typing and scrolling back up and reading the other person's response and trying to give them a response and then trying to get the next one. Because obviously people find me controversial, so they want to ask me things, and yet when I tell them I'm going to go live, do a live appearance for them, they can ask me anything, I do my best to answer it. It's a non-show. What sound do chickens make again? That's right, nothing. Now, when somebody said that about the person on the non-sex show, the creationist who didn't show up, they asked that question, what sound do chickens make? I gave them a sort of a bit of a smart-ass response, but a good one. And that was, chickens make about 300 unique different sounds or more. Yeah, 300 is about what they've so far. Some detected in some amount of chickens, but if you spent a lifetime studying chickens, I'm sure you'll find there's probably thousands of unique different sounds they make. This is why I like to actually be out in nature and actually, physically, personally, talk to the animals. The whole Dr. Dolittle, it's a silly story, really, with a silly name. We can talk with them. They will respond to you. Next time you see a bird when you're walking down the street, just say hello to it, acknowledge it. It doesn't necessarily understand the English that you're using, but it understands the inflection and it understands the intent that you are projecting to it. You're saying, hello, other face of God, I acknowledge you, I see you. And they look at you. You become more intelligent, you become more aware. We were talking about mushrooms even. There's a possibility I may have just had a slight little bit of mushroom juice before coming onto this, just to help inspire me a bit and be more in tune with myself, my nature, and just, to be chill and to be able to be intuitive towards any questions that you may have. So I find it very, very interesting that when I do this, I tell those at least a dozen different people asking me, hammering me with questions. I say, my fingers are getting tired. I'm going to go do a live show shortly, and I'm happy to answer your questions further from there on in. 7 minutes into the show, not a single viewer. I guess I'm real popular, eh? So anyway, maybe just chill out a bit. I'm just going to sing a song. Oh, we've got another appearance there. Hello, whoever you may be. I can see there's somebody there. I have no idea who you are, but if you don't want to talk, that's fine. As I said, I'm here to answer people's questions. If they've got pressing questions that they keep hammering me with on the Non Sequitur show in the chat. And so this is why I'm here. So go and tell your friends if you want to. I'm willing to answer any sort of questions, whether it be about evolution, whether it be about the moon, whether it be about the minimal amount of stuff I know about giants, which isn't a lot, I can tell you that, but I'm still researching it and finding more and more all the time. The latest topic that's really hitting popularity is Tartaria and mud floods. Heaps of evidence of not only giants, but also of a race of beings, quite possibly the Aryan race from which some of us have descended, who are literally being tried to have been eliminated. Get your lips around that one. Eliminated from our history books, from history altogether. That this is a great empire that built most of these grand buildings that we see in virtually every city, that are now being swamped by these horrible steel and concrete abominations. That so much of our history has been lost, and pretty much only quite recently. If you really look into it, you'll see that most of the years up until the 1700s were written with the letter I or J, or in some cases X before them. And that I, in many cases, was mistaken for a 1. So it wasn't actually 1700s whatsoever. The I stood for Isuus, or Jesus, or X for Christ. So it meant in the year of Christ, say 791. So the historians then interpreted that as 1791. That's why when 1900 was our last century, now we're in the 2000s. In actual fact, we're only in the 900s last century. So now we're in the first 1000th century since Christ. So that's something most people don't actually even know just yet, that there is an entire 1,000 years of history magically added, called Dark Ages because there's no records, of course. It's just dark. Nobody knows about it. That's how they manipulate us, through our history, through our schools, through our indoctrination, through everything. And, any alternative medicine practitioner, wiped out. Anybody stands up to modern medicine, They come out and do this magic suicide where they hang themselves after shooting themselves in the back of the head twice and stuff like that. Go figure. All sorts of weird things happen to alternative medical practitioners because pharmacy is massive, massive business. And any threat to that is a threat to a huge industry, to huge profits. Same as any threat to big oil. You can't go up against them without being shut down or eliminated entirely, as though you never even existed. This has been going on for at least a century, perhaps longer. I reckon they've got technology well beyond what they tell us they've got. You know, they make us think we're living in primitive dark age times now compared to the stuff they've got. It suits their purposes. It's a bit like that experiment where they raised a village of children out in the middle of the sticks somewhere and told them that they were living in some sort of 1800 type experience where, you know, no modern technology existed. These kids didn't know any different. They just grew up. That was their lot. It just goes to prove we believe in the world with which we are presented, as the true man shows us. So, who is the true man? The one who thinks for himself, who sorts things out for himself, and who doesn't accept anything because authorities told him. Most people, they believe what they're told because authorities told them. And we're told that these people, they know stuff. These are learned, knowledgeable people. So you believe what they say or else. So anyway, seems nobody wants to come in and say good day. A couple more people have come and gone. I'll sing a song then while I'm waiting. On the first part of the journey, I believe we lived on a globe. I was taught that we were spinning through a galaxy and that somehow the oceans could curve. The first thing I met was 200 proofs that Earth is not a spinning ball. And try as I might, I looked at everything inside and I could find no curvature at all. You see, we live on a flat plane, Mother Earth is her name, and the Father's the sun up above, and the stars at night, they are the angelic lights, and we are here to make heaven on earth. La 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 la. Well, after 2 years researching flat Earth truth, I watched hour after hour of YouTubes. I really wondered how we could believe in a globe without an ounce of verifiable proof. And the stories are told of the deception that's flowed into the minds of the impressionable youth. You see, we live on the planet, it's an infinite plane. We're surrounded by Antarctic ice. We are the children of stars, we're not descendants from Mars, and we are here to make paradise. La 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 la. La 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 la. Well, on the third part of the journey, the truth it was plain to see. We've all been deceived from the cradle to grave, but the truth can set us all free. Just remember, you're descended from God, and you live in your mother's womb. And when you grow up and move out of this world, you go to work in your father's fields. You see, we live on a flat plane, Mother Earth is her name, and the Father's the sun up above, and the stars at night, they are the angels. angelic lights and way ahead and make heaven on earth. La 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 la. Oh, I got a viewer and a thumb up. Awesome, thank you. And so I'm just here to ask questions, but if no one's answer questions, if no one's around to ask me anything, how can I answer them? So cheers for the thumbs up for whoever you may be. It's appreciated. As I've been explaining to all the ghosts that have appeared so far, a few people have come and gone, but nobody wanted to say anything. Is that I was just being on the non sequitur show, where it was a non-show because the occasionist person didn't show up. So I was just in there in the chat, saying a lot of things, answering to the things they were talking about, and of course, heaps and heaps of people kept asking me questions and stuff. So I said, look, after this, I'll do a live show. Feel free to come in and ask me anything. Now I'll talk about any topic, creation, my opinion on creation, any sort of philosophical questions. I've got many different varieties of how creation may have happened, none of which I think are any better than the other. Anything to do with flat Earth, more than happy to talk about. And I originally was going to talk about lawn bowls too, just mention briefly, because normally on a Wednesday afternoon, which is what it is here now, I'd be out playing lawn bowls. And because it was raining all morning, and I kept checking the rain radar, and it kept looking so it's getting worse and worse. So I decided not to go. And of course, as soon as I decided not to go and it was too late to leave, the sun comes out, and there it is. Now a nice sunny afternoon, and I probably should have gone and played lawn bowls instead of sitting around on the non sequitur show, copying question after question after question. So that's why I'm doing this show now. So feel free to ask anything, and I could probably give you a reasonable response to it, or my best theory. In the meantime, until I see a chat come up, I'll just check the chat's working. Oh yeah, typos and everything. Okay, so that came up 2:38 p.m. here in northern New South Wales, Australia. Coming to you live from my home, where I live in Clune, Wales. Not that hard to find. Anybody that can use a Google search and a phone will probably find me. But the thing is, I don't give my mobile phone number out publicly to people. I like the inland taipan. I don't. Not a fan of taipans at all, Mr. Trump. Fancy that. I've got the President of the United States in my room. G'day, Donald. How's it going? I don't like inland taipans. I don't like coastal taipans. I once had a heart-wrenching experience with a coastal taipan. They're a very rare type of taipan. There's only been one example of it being caught before by a local expert in the same area where I was at, actually, and he got killed by it. He was a snake expert. They are dangerous, dangerous, deadly snakes, and I do not like taipans at all. So, yeah, every other snake, the brown snake, the black snake, all of those toxic, or black snakes are very venomous, but browns don't bother me too much at all. But taipans, yeah, I believe that, Mr. Trump. I believe that. I don't like taipans at all. But, from a distance, that's why I'd like to carry a walking stick around with me, actually, because on that particular day I came across a coastal taipan. That was what saved me, was the fact that I was actually using two sticks because I was walking through really thick scrub. So I was sort of pushing it aside with one, pushing it aside for the other, pushing my way through all this overgrowth sort of stuff. And then there was a small little clearing, and all of a sudden, it got me completely unaware. Here's this snake all coiled up. And it went to strike at me, saw my stick, and thought there's no point striking it, and then it pinged off into the bush. So there you go. So anyway, thanks for the question. I really appreciated that, Mr. Trump. So if I got any other songs to sing while I wait for anyone else to come in and ask a question. I think I need new material, to be honest. No more questions, all right. I'll just do a song. This one's really hard to read, but I'll give it a go. Heliocentric sun worship, Masonic illumination. Gravity's a pull that keeps us down, upside hallucination. Move faster than the speed of sound, it's spinning ball earth magic. Where's the edge of the world? Just look at Antarctic exploration. I jump the fishbowl, project the bird, tree the size is memory nation. It's understood that Hollywood sounds spinning ball earth magic. Sell the globe world very well, put it into every classroom, spinning on a ball, feeling nothing at all, surrounded by a vacuum. The blue marble to fool us all. Dream of spinning ball with magic. Dream of spinning ball with magic. Oh Christ, it seems you're the Son of God with your very own constellations. The Savior of the world, it's told, just believe you'll have salvation. While Mother Earth gets raped and fracked with a greed and now starvation. Space might be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. Disseminating bullshit every day, disguised as entertainment. Did you hear the news? There's a new program selling spinning ball earth magic. Born and raised by those who praise control of their slave nations. Nobody's ever been there on a shuttle to the space station. The blue marble, it's Photoshop to fool us all. It has to be. If you look into the flat earth truth, you'll find your mind awakening. The matrix flies right to your eyes, but the red pill is amazing. Boy, you better wake up so you don't be a cow, stop grazing. The flat earth is the truth to all of your indoctrination. Served its purpose very well, called chained to the slave nation. Unlocked from the law, I'm chained from it all. Awake from spinning ball of magic. To believe in such a big lie is tragic. Awake from spinning ball of magic. Mind control is so sadistic. Don't be fooled by the great deceiver. Lose the first Satan and fall. Okay. Hey, Big Swill. Like the flat cards here. Good on you, mate. Good to see another intelligent question there. Just so I'd sing a song while I'm waiting to see if somebody wants to come along and actually ask me anything to challenge my mind, to see what trick me up with. Yeah. Were you on? I didn't see you there fight the flat cards on the non-secretary show. One of the ones there throwing questions at me left, right, and centre, which I answered pretty much every single one as much as possible. My audio is fucked, is it? Let me just hit show on that. See if it comes up. Somebody said my audio was fucked the other day too. Or just today. Somebody said that in one of the things. Maybe it's the laptop, because it doesn't have an external microphone jack. So I can't actually plug a microphone in. I just got to use the inbuilt one, but it usually seems to work pretty well. So what do you suggest I do? Fight the flatards? Was it flatards? Hard to tell because you didn't really abbreviate it. I think it's flatards. So you believe that there's a fight? Is that what you're trying to say? So, yeah, what have you got then, Mr. Globetard? What have you got to prove we live on a spinning ball? Yeah, you tell me what you've got. Set up a live debate if you like and invite me in. I don't know how to do that. But obviously, you've got nothing intelligent to say. I'll wait until somebody intelligent comes along and actually has something they want to actually ask. Oh, no, not this one. It's too hard. Yeah, no, I'm not doing that today. Oh, God. I've got some comedy ones here. This one should be a good one. Put your head in a bucket of water for a start. Yeah, that's going to prove we live on a globe for sure, mate. Yeah, you're fucking so smart. What a genius. Like the planets, put your head in a bucket of water for a start. That's going to prove we live on a globe. Oh. Wanker. Now I've heard there was a spinning ball. We call the earth the blue marble, but no one has ever seen the curvature. They say it spins around and round. Gravity keeps us on the ground, but no motion has ever been detected. Where's the curvature? Where's the curvature? Where's the curvature? Where's the curvature? Your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You looked for curve, remained aloof, and water always finds its level. You took a rocket to the moon and even wrote this awful tune, but still you couldn't find the curvature. Where's the curvature? Where's the curvature? Where's the curvature? Where's the curvature? You say I took the globe in vain. I don't even know the name, but Gaia rings a bell within me. There's a blaze of light in every word. Just break the spell of curvature. Don't be fooled by the great still be ridiculed by the breakdown. What have you seen? Any movement? You see the spinning stars above, but none of that can prove it. Oh, we want to look out and see the curvature. Where's the curvature? 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 Where's the Where the motherfuck's the curvature? Sorry about that. Sometimes you just gotta put it out there in song. Now my head's out of the bucket. God, I wish I could read my own writing. Okay, so nobody really wants to ask me anything at all. I'm wasting my time, really. Once there was this kid who got indoctrinated. He was forced to go to school, and when he's in the classroom, they talked. He lived upon a spinning ball. He asked, why don't we fall? Shit, I cannot read my own writing. Not French all the cross outs and messy shit. I need to type these all out one day and put the chords in properly so I can actually read them. That's the one I did just last week. That's one I did yesterday, and it's got a copyright strike on it. If I do that one again, the piece. Oh, hang on, no, that's not it. I haven't put it in the book yet. No, that's different. I did Peaceful Flat Earth Feeling. That didn't get a copyright strike. I did Lying Eyes, the Eagle song, yesterday. Apparently it's copyright striked in America at the moment. I'm contesting it because I said, well, I changed all the lyrics, and because I made a few stuff-ups in the chords, as I always do anyway. I said, so it's not exactly copywriting somebody else's song. I said I was inspired by Lying Eyes, but we'll see how it goes, because it says if I'm lying about that, they're going to shut my whole channel down, so hopefully it's not going to backfire on me. But it wasn't really a copyright strike either, except it was just banned from 7 countries, one of which was the United States, which is kind of like 50 countries when you think about it. Oh, wow. So no one's got any more questions? Well, isn't it weird? All these people want to fire questions at me in some chat on another page. I tell them where to come and find me, and I'll respond to you directly, personally. I'll answer them. Thanks, Regan Humphreys. I hope I pronounced that right. If you speak the truth, they'll shut you down. Can't go against the agenda. Seems to be the way. But as I say, they weren't particularly shut me down. I was just sang a song. But by contesting it, they've got the potential to shut me down. So who knows? But yeah, you're right. They do. They do that to a lot of people. That's why you got to be careful. And I think that's why a lot of people um, who know the truth, they're actually very smart and they have to go about it very smart. You can't just go and stand on a street corner and start preaching it because people are going to look at you like a raving lunatic. And quite often these people who feel inspired to do that sort of thing, that's how they end up getting treated. They get treated as heretics. They get thought of as loonies because they really genuinely feel they have something they want to say, they want to share with the world and say, hey, things aren't as they seem. Wake up, you dumb mofos. Glad I held my tongue there. And yeah, they will shut you down. There's a huge agenda to keep the truth hidden. That's the whole problem. That's the history of our current world we're in. They just want us to be dumb, working class citizens who they can use for a short period of time and drive to an early grave and recycle them. Make sure they breed quite a bit while they're there. Hello, Shandy. Yeah, make sure we breed a bit, replace ourselves, and don't live to a ripe old age. Retire at a young age, really, 65, 70, and then lose all your life savings towards your old age care because they want to make sure the children don't get anything, so they remain hard-working slaves, use up their lives as a hard-working slave, give them the odd holiday here and there, but apart from that, that's all we are. We're just debt slaves. It's a messed up system, and that's the way they like it. They don't want us reaching enlightenment and thinking for ourselves and saying, hey, we're all slaves. We shouldn't have to be doing this. Look at all this technology we've got. Look at how wonderful the world could be if there wasn't just this select group of greedy ass bastards telling us all what to do, making everything scarce. What if we just all shared technology? Everybody could just work 1 or 2 days a week voluntarily and still be given a living wage, and the whole world would be a better place because you get money so you can spend it. But no, what these greedy pricks want to do, they just want to get the money to hoard it, to make it scarce, to make us struggle and fight over one another, to do menial tasks for the minimum wage so that they can then go and tax the shit out of it anyway. I mean, they take like 20 to 30% out of your minimum wage before you even get it. And then everything you're spending it on, it's got taxes on taxes in it as well. Then there's another 10% GST at the point of sale, or if it's not already built in, as it is in Australia. Yeah, that's it. Wake up, you're still a slave. That's the way our system is. Seems like no matter how many of us wake up, there's just not enough of us because the rest of the slaves love their servitude. That's what it comes down to. They love it. You dare try and speak up, speak some truths. What do they want to do? They want to shut you down. No, you're a nutter. You're a conspiracy theorist. It's like, yeah, thanks for your support, mate. I'm only doing this for everybody else's benefit as well. Sharing knowledge and waking up to the truth is beneficial for everybody. I just don't understand why people love their servitude so much. Well, I do actually. I do understand human psychology 101. You want to be, first of all, you want to be accepted. You want to feel like you belong. So you don't speak up against your masters because time's not that long ago when people did speak up against their masters, they just got nailed to a fucking cross and crucified in public. So the smart ones learned to keep their mouths shut, or should I say, maybe not necessarily even smart, but just cowardly ones. I'd rather be the martyr on the cross being crucified than to be the one suffering in silence and being a submissive little slave. So, I read a really good one today, actually. I wonder if I could find it again. Probably not, but yeah, freedom belongs to those who are intelligent enough to know they want it and strong enough to fight for it. It's not just freely given to us. Reagan says, forgot who the master was. And Chris Toffer, g'day, mate. These ballers love to lie, it makes them happy. Yeah. The thing is, we have to be self-masters. That's the thing. That's what's hidden from us, is we have to master ourselves. When you master yourself, then you step into, as many people are logos. You understand truth, and you won't accept the lies that they inflict upon us and keep telling us, and accept your lot in life and say, well, this is your place. Just accept it. Go along to get along. Anyway, I was hoping that some of these more it's the word I'm looking for here. I can't think when I got the power in my hands. I just want to sing. Some of these more contentious rogues who've been hammering me with questions in other chats lately. I told them I'm going to come and do a live show. Come and ask me anything. So dropped out for a second. That's cool, man. Might be the Aussie connection here too. It could be having a bit of trouble. Anyway, where is all from? Yeah, Aussies, American. Perth. Canada. Cool. Never been to Canada. I got as far as the US one time. Hey, Aussie. Yeah, I got to the US when I was a teenager, actually. I started school a year early because I was just ready to go to school. And I was always told, I could. Cali, hey, that's where I got to. It was Northern California. A place called Chico, or actually Corning, near Chico. And my first place was Cottonwood, a little shitsville place near Redding, I believe it's called. Anyway, it was North California. Yeah, because I started school young, I was always told I've got a year I could repeat if need be, because I started at 4. So most people in my class are always a year or close to a year older than me. So I always had that year up my sleeve. And every teacher said, no, we don't want him back again. Oh, yeah, Northern New South Wales, Australia here, mate. Not far from Byron Bay, closer to Lismore. Place called Clunes now. Seem to like places starting with C. Corning, Chico, Cottonwood, Clunes. Anyway, most everywhere else I used to live started with B for ages. So I'm working my way through the alphabet. Yeah, had that year up my sleeve. So that's why I became an exchange student when I was 16, which is my year 11. Went to the States and they put me sort of in what they call junior year over there, which is the second last year of high school. Weird, eh? Like we call both the last 2 years of high school here seniors, years 11 and 12. But the equivalent of year 11 over there that I went into was the equivalent of year 9 stuff I'd done 2 years before here in Australia. Educational standards in the US, nothing to brag. Gold Coast, oh yeah, nice. Not far at all, and you're getting wet up there. We had a lot of rain here this morning. But yeah, that's what I can say. I went to college for a day just with my older host brother. It was towards the end of the year, but the college students, when they're in the classrooms, are still actually treated much like high school students are here in high school. Quite that. I don't know. It's but most of the people that go to college just go there to party for 4 years, study hard and cram for their exams, get their piece of paper, and then they can go off and get some lame ass job they don't deserve, but because their rich parents paid their way through it, that's how they got it. Over here, it's the intellects that get to go to university, and it doesn't cost nearly so much. Thank goodness my kids are doing well, and it's not costing me anything because no way I could afford to pay what parents in the US pay for college fees. Loads of rains, mate. We had lots this morning, but sunny now. It's a bummer. I was going to go bowling. What I do on a Wednesday arvo, if possible, if I'm not working. Haven't had any work all week, which is a bummer. So another tight week, but anyway, that's my problems. Where was I? Yeah, just talking about education in general. The way I saw it in the US is that there's a high percentage of the people who aren't going to go to college, what you'd probably call the non-intellectuals, the less wealthy. That's probably as good a word as any. people that can't afford to pay for extra tuition, and they basically come from pretty low standards of suburbia, that sort of thing. These kids haven't really got a chance, but their only chance is then to join the military. So I actually saw schools over there as actual military recruitment centres. And a couple of times a year, they would actually have people from the military there signing these kids up, getting their names down, getting them sorted from, the age of about 15, 16, whatever. Do you intend to go to college? You should join the military. That's your only chance of a career. So yes, Regan, lawn bowls, mate. I love it. I've got to go up to Kingscliff again next weekend. I was there last Saturday, but we got rained out about halfway through. So this Sunday we've got to play the remaining half of that game. And on Saturday we play at Bengalo, that's my home team, against Coogin. So it's getting up towards the Gold Coast there. It's all the northern New Zealand. It's called Kingscliff is as far north as we go. So yeah, I don't think we go to Tweed. Maybe it is called the Byron Tweed Division. Anyway, Pennants doesn't last long. We've got those 2 games to play this weekend, and then another one to play down at Byron the following weekend, and that's Pennants season done. But I love my lawn bowls, and the reason I had that in my initial, this is a take 2 again of going live because the first one didn't work. But the first one I did a title for it. Actually mentioned lawn bowl edition, so I was going to discuss that. And I think the reason why I personally take to lawn bowls and like it so much is because of the way I've lived my life. I feel highly intuitive with nature. So when you're playing lawn bowls, it's not just about take these off for a second. It's not just about having good eyesight and depth perception, but it's also about being out in nature and dealing with the local conditions on the day, and even being able to predict it down to the time where your bowl ends up. Quite often the wind is a major influence, plus the sun, but the wind is the biggest influence on my bowls especially. And if the wind suddenly changes when it gets down towards the end and pushes your bowl out, well, you can't just turn around and say, oh, bloody wind change. No, you have to sort of be able to have this predictive ability as well and be able to see through it. Ross likes playing with balls. Oh, Fight the Flat Tards is back. G'day, mate. Aren't you a lovely fella? Yeah, I like playing with bowls, they're called. Anybody that keeps calling them balls, we turn around and say, it's a bowl, not a ball. So, right. But yeah, I do like playing with balls. I used to like playing pool. That was one of my favourite games when I was younger. Don't play it very often now. Back when I lived in Bengalo, I actually used to have a pool table in my backyard. It was just a big tarp setup on poles and some old carpet on the bare dirt and a really old rickety pool table. And I spent a lot of time there, especially when my marriage started falling apart and had nothing better to do through my days. So I'd just go up in my backyard and spark up the barbie, cook some potatoes and onions and stuff and have a few beers and play pool. In fact, I taught myself to play. I'm left-handed naturally. And because I got bored with that, one day I just decided I will teach myself to play right-handed as well. And it turns out because I'm actually right-eyed, go figure, I end up being a better player right-handed versus myself. So I could always tell people when I'm with them, I always like to play with myself, but I usually beat myself with my right hand more than I beat myself with my left hand. And they'd look at me weird and like, playing pool. Sometimes you've got to add a little bit of humour into your conversations. But I love lawn bowls now. I don't love. I enjoy it. If I get out once or twice a week, it's good company, good people. One of the only sports, apart from pool, where you can sit and have a beer while you're playing, go back inside and have another beer afterwards. It's great fun. Brenda von Assen, I better pronounce that right. That's a bit tricky in English. The Earth is a globe. It revolves around the sun. The sun revolves around the Milky Way, which is just one of billions and billions of other galaxies. That's a good one, Brenda. Yeah, I used to believe that sort of shit too. It's funny when you wake up to it and realise that the Earth isn't moving. The sun moves around above us locally, illuminates it. Wherever it's directly above you is your 12 p.m. local, and as it moves away by about 6 p.m., it's so far away, it's obscured by your nearby horizon just a few miles away, and it's no longer of sufficient electromagnetic power to illuminate the local atmosphere near you. And at least you got your apostrophe right. You're wrong. That's a change for a glober. Once the atmosphere stops being illuminated by it due to the glow of the noble gases in the atmosphere, as they stop glowing, you start to see the stars, which were there all along anyway. And the stars are the ones moving around us as well. The sun moves independently on its own track, 24 hours a day until it's back where it started again. Think about it. If you're on a spinning ball and the spin of the ball is what creates the day, and you're measuring a day as exactly 24 hours. And it's like having a clock, right? And you've got your 12 o'clock at the top the whole time. Every time you do a rotation of 24 hours, the 12 is always going to be at the top. So as you're going around the sun, the 12 is always at the top. By the time you got over to the other side 6 months later, midday is going to be midnight. You just can't have it both ways. You can't be going around the sun and not have your day and night swap places if you're doing it to a fixed timepiece. Now, I don't care if you call it a sidereal day and say there's 4 minutes less and that extra 4 minutes adjusts us back towards the sun again. That doesn't work because it's a fixed amount of time every day. So if you want to be on a spinning ball going around the sun, you have to be adjusting your... Hey, mate, what's I'm bloody drinking? You have to be adjusting your clocks by 4 minutes daily in order to keep the sun at midday as you're going around it. But if the sun is going around us and coming back to the same spot every 24 hours, so midday is always midday, that's how it works quite logically and easily on the flat stationary planar Earth. Brenda thinks the spaceball fantasy is real. I know, it's sad, isn't it, that there's still grown adults believing in this fantasy ball. I mean, how long has it been since we've come to the realization and investigated? You know, like people that come to flat Earth groups here to sort of mock and ridicule flat Earthers. Surely some of what we're saying must be sinking in. Bit of me old homebrew, mate. Slick James is the IQ of a corn dog. Your English is pretty good, Regan. Brenda can't explain the mechanism for gravity. No. You know, this is one of my favourite go-tos now, of course. Gravity is... if gravity is holding the moon in orbit around the Earth, and gravity is holding the Earth in orbit around the sun, then why is the moon more attracted to the sun, for one thing? If the Earth is orbiting around the sun at 66,600 miles per hour, sometimes the moon is going to be in front of that orbital rate. Sometimes the moon is going to be behind. Sometimes it's going to be on either side. So how can gravity be repelling it as we're going towards it at 66,600 miles per hour if the moon is only traveling 2,080 miles per hour around us to go backwards once every 27.3 days? I mean, what's repelling it and attracting it? No astrophysicist has an answer for that. Any serious astrophysicist turns around and would privately admit we have no explanation for the moon in this model. There is no serious, honest explanation for why we have the moon. The sun is 93 million miles away. I haven't had it explained to me in the non sequitur show. I've asked it 3 times and I've had 3 different answers. The first person tells me the moon is down a gravity well. And so I say, well, what's a gravity well? How can something be down a well and be attracted and repelled to us? And they just laugh. So can you say that again? I said, well, which bit? And we didn't get back to it. So that was ignored. The other person says, imagine the moon is on a platform. As the Earth is moving, the moon is on this platform. I say, but no, the moon is in a vacuum of space. So that answer didn't work. The last bloke tells me that the moon isn't orbiting the Earth. He says it's orbiting the sun. But I said, but we know that it spins around the Earth. So it is orbiting the Earth. And he said, oh, yeah, but the sun makes it speed up and slow down. And That makes no sense whatsoever. When gravity works, gravity goes bam, makes things stick hard. It doesn't repel, it doesn't slingshot things around. The moon is a more or less constant distance around and above us the whole time, 24/7. Like, it might change a bit seasonally, as does the sun. It changes up and down for the seasons, but it's always going around the equator at exactly 24 hours per circuit. And as it gets higher and higher and further away, it appears to make a smaller and smaller circle, which makes the appearance of moving further north. When it comes back down, it has the appearance of going further south. And that's what gives us the seasons. Direct sunlight through the least amount of atmosphere creates the seasons, no matter how far away it actually is. But here down in the south, we're actually getting quite cold already because the sun moving further away, it's appearing to go far enough north that it's bringing in the cold air from further south, further outwards from Antarctica. Yeah, exactly. What are the chances of them being the same size in the sky? That is just an absolute 100% impossibility. There's no way you could go out and buy 10 auto pick lotto tickets in 10 weeks and have all 10 of them come true. And that is even more likely than the sun and the moon appearing to be the same size. So, no, Brenda, I have not had that explained to me. I've had it avoided and moved on to the next thing, because these people like to appear as though they're experts, appear as though they have an explanation, but they've really explained jack shit. It's weaker than static electricity. The flat earth comes back again. Keep pushing your own barrow, Ross. As long as the other flat earth cultists agree with you, stay in your bubble, Ross. Well, I don't care whether they agree with me or not. I'm not out to please anybody or to agree with anybody or be part of any sort of group. I'm an independent truther, always have been, and it just happens to be that flat earth, to me, is the greatest human movement, awakening of the mind that we've experienced in like hundreds of years. This is something big because it shows the length of the deception that has been going against us for so long. So when everything you believe is a deception, then you're easily deceived in much other things, much smaller things. Christopher said, hey, Brenda, if man went to the moon, how did they change film cartridges in a near perfect 250-degree vacuum with space gauntlets on? I like that one. Yeah, I never even thought about changing film. I'm a bit more worried about what were they breathing? How much air did they take with them? How did the air pressure in the dune buggy tires stay up? Where did the dune buggy fit into that tiny little lunar lander that they could barely turn around in? Where did their golf clubs come from? They went all the way to the moon to play golf. That's a very Masonic thing to do. The whole moon landing thing, what a joke. Absolute joke. We've never been to the moon. Richard Aindale, hey guy, surely you don't believe. I've got a message held for review by Brenda. Let me have a look what it says. You are not an independent thinker. You're just like thousands of other conspiratards, dumb as shit and determined to stay that way. No, Brenda, let me give you a little hint, mate. I'm not dumb. I chose not to get indoctrinated in a higher form of education to be a good little slave for some sort of career. My IQ is far higher than most people. I'm Mensa level. I've had it independently tested twice at 148. So I don't like to brag about that, but that's just who I am. I'm not dumb as shit. I'm highly intuitive. I'm highly in tune with nature, and I understand stuff I see. And if I don't agree with it, I still have an open mind to it, to consider it, to file it away somewhere in my mind and see if it makes sense. And if over time I see the pattern forming, then I can create a picture that most people miss. Most people go straight over their head because they're too indoctrinated in their own beliefs that they've taken from authority, and they just accept it because it's like people that go to church and they believe whatever the priest says, whether it makes sense or not. You know, if they say that Jesus walked on water, they'll believe Jesus walked on water because the man in the white dress told them so. So the people believing scientists are no different. They're believing the men in the white dresses, filling their heads full of these ideas because they're authorities, they've got higher knowledge, and so you believe it. And if you learn what they teach you, then you're smart. You consider yourself educated, and the other people are dumb as shit. So thank you, Brenda. Nah, I am not dumb as shit. Why are rainbows shown as an arc? Is that a question to me or to Brenda? I mean, light is something we could go on for a long time. What made me decide the Earth was flat? Red pill philosophy as well. So I saw your name pop up there. I always like to say good day to you because you always say good day to me. Globe skepticism is directly associated with high IQ. It's just the truth. I believe so. We question anything and everything. So what made me decide the Earth is flat? Many, many things. Of course, I grew up believing we're on a globe. In my late teens, I started really getting connected with nature. I started smoking a bit of pipe and stuff, and I'd go out and watch sunsets all the time. And I would seriously, genuinely be believed, because on the east coast here, we see the sun sort of setting behind the mountains. But where I was living was great because I could sit on sand hills across this big bay or port called Port Stevens and see it setting over the mountains in the distance. And I'd be sitting there on the sand hill, meditative, and thinking to myself, I can feel the earth spinning away towards the east as the sun disappears from view. And I thought that was some sort of awakening, being in touch with nature. I genuinely believed that. That's why it hurt me so much to when I became genuinely convinced that the earth is flat. Okay, so I'll go to the rainbows because you did ask and I sidestepped that one. I don't particularly know exactly why rainbows are curved, but to me that's an indication of some sort of lensing, that the way light works. I mean, that rainbows exist under certain conditions. Unfortunately, where I live, it's called the rainbow region. So we are privileged to see a lot of rainbows a lot of the year round. And to be honest, in these last few months, despite getting quite a bit of rain, I've seen bugger all of them. And I think the chemtrails have got a huge influence as to affecting what we see as far as light spectrums are concerned. But yeah, basically, I would think they could be proof that we live within a dome. Most people say you don't get rainbows inside unless you get reflected light. So it's got to do with moisture content, the clouds, the way the light's coming through the clouds generally as they're parting, that creates the right conditions for rainbows. But I don't really know why they're curved. It's an interesting one. If you put it white light like the Pink Floyd album, white light through a pyramid type structure, it comes out the other side in straight lines of a rainbow. That sort of indicates maybe if you did it through a globe, you get the curved rainbow. That's sort of my best theory why rainbows curve. But your guess is as good as mine. Major Flat D, hello. Love to you too. I've missed a few comments here, and I came here to answer questions and comments, so I'm trying not to miss any, because now finally, the first half hour I'm here talking with myself, playing a few songs on the guitar just to get warmed up. So Brenda says, I'm not Manson material, you're a clown and you're just like all the other conspiracy theorists. Oh, you can't spell theorists, right? You're right, but you can't spell theorists. Close enough. In the world, there are thousands and thousands of people just like you. Maybe there are, but that's what the world's all about, isn't it? The more people put their minds together and think alternatively, the closer we're going to get to the truth. But by not having an open mind to the truth, then you're denying yourself the opportunity to maybe learn something, because you so have to be right because you want to be part of the crowd that believes like the majority do. You can't dare step outside of that, poke your head through the veil and look for yourself and step through there and just live it, be it. Be not afraid. Put yourself on the line. Put your reputation on the line. Don't feel like you have to appeal to everybody else for popularity. If we're a conspiracy theorist and there are thousands and thousands like me, good. I hope there's millions and millions of us soon. They're all independently thinking. None of us are mind-controlled little sheep like the ones that the indoctrination centers punch out every year. G2G Poncho Pete swings in through the window, flicking the bird at Brenda. Yeah, that's it. I'm with you there, mate. Brenda, at Red Pill Philosophy, I'll debate you anytime. Wow, this Brenda von Arsen is quite the tough little bird, isn't she? Circus observer, we never went to the moon. That's correct. Rainbows show arc because of the rakia. Well, I'm curious about rakia because the word rakia actually means stretched out like a tarpaulin. And to me now, this makes sense. If the Earth is an infinite plane and helium rises, once it reaches a certain height, perhaps it actually freezes. It's so cold, and that is the firmament, like a massive layer of frozen helium, perhaps hydrogen, which forms this blue ice. Now, the fact that there's, I think, reputable rumours of people discovering this blue ice somewhere in Antarctica, that then indicates it does come down somewhere, which gives us this dome. So the dome I don't completely rule out, and I'm favouring more and more in favour of it now. But it sort of comes up then around the edges of Antarctica, and then basically it forms the rakia, the tarpaulin above us. So it's a dome, flat sort of thing, and everything basically where we are, where it matters, where we live, is basically straight up to the same air pressure, air height. Um, and this is another one I said on Quora today. If anybody checks out the forum Quora, when you think about pressure of the atmosphere and pressure of gas in a bottle, if you've got, say, a gas bottle for your barbecue and it's nearly empty, you shake it around and you can see that there's this layer of liquid in the bottom sloshing around. This is what I think is how air pressure on Earth actually works, is that air and water are the same thing, more or less. But when you compress it enough, the bottom part becomes liquid. And that's sort of like a surface, but it's a volatile surface. It's fairly steady, but we've always got evaporation happening. We've got clouds happening. And so the gas and the liquid of air and water are constantly sort of circulating in their own right. And if this pressure got released, all the gas would release out into, say, the atmosphere, the vacuum of space, the same way gas gets released from the pressure on your gas bottle, but it only ever gets released as a gas. But what happens then, the liquid level inside the bottle keeps going down and down and down. That's what would happen if we were in a vacuum of space. We'd instantly lose our atmosphere because it's not sealed. It's not sealed like a gas bottle with a pressure valve that holds it tight. And nobody's out there releasing it. That if we're in a void of space, the atmosphere is instantly gone. Therefore, then all the liquid evaporates too, just as we see in a vacuum chamber. If you put a glass of water in a vacuum chamber, it boils instantly. The water disappears because it turns back into its gaseous form. So we must be in a pressurized system, which shows must be either enclosed and sealed in some way, or it is so big and vast that there's still a layer right above us that may be infinite that's holding everything down. So that's either with or without the dome, we are not on a spinning ball in outer space. Do you also believe that the moon and sun are flat? Asked Richard. No, I don't. I don't believe that at all. I think they're quite possibly 3D spherical objects. And I've got no reason to believe otherwise. I don't think the sun is actually an object. I think it's more like a portal, an interdimensional portal that allows some sort of energy from another dimension to come into here, which is why then it appears as a glowing orb of light when we look at it, because we're seeing it through the illuminated gases of the atmosphere. A conspiritard, says Christopher, hard to pronounce the name, I'll call it backward letters. A conspiritard is someone who doesn't understand that conspiring happens whenever two people agree to act for a predetermined outcome. So everyone conspires all the time, exactly. Like a group of builders conspired to build this house. That's a conspiracy. And there's water up there. It's quite possibly water. I don't know about that one. Whoops, I just jumped through a whole heap there. I know if you look down on a rainbow from the sky, it makes a perfect circle. There's a possibility of that. I have seen that phenomenon happening, but I don't know if that's always the case. I've sometimes seen rainbows like within feet. You can reach out and literally put your hand through it. So rainbows are a weird phenomenon. A lie is a lie even if everyone believes it, and the truth is the truth even if nobody does. That's so true, Regan. A minority of one can be correct and be ridiculed by everybody else, but doesn't mean he's incorrect. So, don't appeal to authority or to popularity in order to think that you're right. Think for yourself, stand in your own truth, and you can't go wrong, especially if you've got a thinking mind. Who debra Joe Biden is a child molester? Well, there you go. I don't talk about other people, and who the hell is Joe Biden anyway? I don't care. Reagan says, I like that perspective. Thanks, mate. Air is not water. Air is compressed of O2, CO2, and N. Water is H2O. Well, that's what you say, Brenda. But have you proven for yourself that water is H2O? Have you ever taken 2 bits of hydrogen and 1 bit of oxygen and made water? I don't think you have. You know, there are lots of other gases in the atmosphere. I'm well aware of that. But there's also lots of other elements in water. So to say it's just H2O, that is just pure hypothetical nonsense, which you've been taught again by your men in white dresses. So fight the flatards. Ooh, missed that one. Come back. Blue ice occurs when snow falls on a glacier, is compressed and becomes part of the glacier. Air bubbles are squeezed out and ice crystals enlarge, making the ice appear blue. Well, that's interesting. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's frozen hydrogen, helium. Who knows? But what I do know about Operation High Jump and Operation Deep Freeze, Admiral Byrd said on that famous interview, it's a reconnaissance mission. And why would he say it's a reconnaissance mission? That means they've already been down there doing something and they have to go and try and get it back again. And my best understanding of that is they had one of those big drilling machines, big ice borer or some sort of cave making machine. And as they tried to bore through this blue ice, the blue ice grew back around it, swallowed it up, and they lost a very, very expensive piece of machinery, which they didn't get back. And eventually they came home with their tail between their legs and said Antarctica is off limits. It is only for scientific expeditions and a few little tourist places for people that watch the penguins from now on. Yeah, there's more to the picture than meets the eye when it comes to what's going on down in Antarctica and the blue ice thing. One of the scientists, or one of the people down there who worked amongst the scientists who told us about the blue ice, says when he got to hold a piece, he had to hold in a glove because it's so freezing cold, but as it evaporated, it didn't form water like ice does when it melts. It just turned to nothing. And it was very, very light, which indicates it's a gas, a compressed gas. And because of the temperature of compressing it so much, turns it into a solid called blue ice. Might be other forms of blue ice, of course, as well, of course. Don't get me wrong. You've probably got a good point with that, but there is such a thing in these minus 120 degree temperatures of Antarctica where this other blue ice happens. Might scroll through a few here and see if we can get back to the bottom. If we're in this is a good one. Brenda asks, if we're in a pressurized closed system, how do you explain different air pressure at sea level versus mountaintops? That's obvious and logical. Different gases have different densities. So just like one of those, what do they call them again, density towers, where the liquids and everything go to their particular level, well, gases will do that to a degree as well. They won't be nearly as clear cut between, say, oil, water, and whatever other things you add to it. But oxygen is a bit more dense than some of the other gases, and so they form their own sort of density thing within an enclosed system because there's nowhere else to go. So they sort themselves out roughly. But you have to go fairly high before oxygen becomes so scarce you need to have assisted oxygen to breathe. So the different air pressure is basically the density of the gases, where everything sinks to its natural level by being more dense than the thing it displaces, which rises above it. It's just the same as everything in density and buoyancy. So the whole universe could be a density and buoyancy thing. Hey, where do all the bloody things just disappear for a second? Explain the boundary conditions that are between the perfect vacuum of space and air. Exactly. There is no possible way that could happen unless it was the density and buoyancy thing, where eventually you could go high enough that there could be nothing. But then because you're not on a spinning ball hurtling through space at 2.2 million miles an hour combined speeds through a vacuum void, then that's how you can easily have a pressure gradient when we're not moving and everything just wants to sink to its place due to density and buoyancy. Explain the boundary. There we go. Missed that one. If we're a pressurized closed system, how to explain different air? Yeah, but gravity, bro, big G. Mass attracts mass. That's Regan. I respect you, mate, because you've been nice and polite. Yeah, there's no such thing as gravity, as I just explained. It's all just density and buoyancy. The more dense object displaces the less dense one, which then makes the less dense one go up above it. And it works the opposite. If something is less dense, say like an air bubble in water, it also takes the path through least resistance and goes upwards to join the air at the level where it belongs. The water's too dense for it. So density and buoyancy explain everything that gravity thinks it does. It's just that the ball believers need their gravity so things can cling upside down on their spinning ball. But when you get over that brainwashing, you don't need gravity at all. The truth of a minority one can be correct, but just because you are a minority one doesn't mean you are correct. That is very true. I agree entirely with that, but it still doesn't mean that you're wrong. So, if you think I'm wrong, then the onus of the burden of proof belongs to you then to find a way to prove it wrong, not just to say it's wrong because you're appealing to authority, because we knew this thousands of years ago. Everybody knows. There's thousands and thousands of proof. That is not proof. You have to give me one definitive proof that we're on a spinning ball in a vacuum of space. Then you would have something to stand on. And then if I can't contest that and my alternative explanation is still just as good, then it doesn't mean I'm wrong, does it? It means you still have the burden of proof on you to prove my particular theory is wrong, if that's how you feel about it. I didn't say they're the same things. I didn't say air and water are the same things. I said that they're properties of the same thing, just as the gas in the gas bottle is the same properties as the liquid in the gas bottle. And as you release the gas, so too do you lose the liquid. So Channel Q, what a motor mouth. Well, hey, I've been waiting to get some decent questions for bloody ages, so it's good to see that some people are coming along and asking a few things. Admiral Byrd was a drunkard who was just after endless funds. Oh, that's bullshit. Who would say that? Admiral Byrd, being a military man, one of the youngest admirals ever in the US military, I think, he'd like to have a drink socially. Of course, he's always after endless funds because he was a true explorer. Credit where it's due. I'm not an admirer of any sort of military whatsoever, but if they're actually doing something, finding out something good, perhaps, or perhaps they're trying to conquer more lands, that's generally all military ever do, find a place, well, they're not going to join our bank, well, then let's invade them. They're the next axis of evil. They're gassing their own citizens. I don't fall for that military bullshit at all. Circus observer, ask God if you're lucky enough. God made two great luminaries, the sun and the moon. I don't believe the moon is a luminary. I believe it's illuminated by the sun. And I've got plenty of reason to believe that. One of them is when you see the daytime moon, you can just hold any white ball up in front of the moon and you'll see they both make exactly the same shadow made by the exact same sun. Now, the sun illuminates the moon. The moon is semi-opaque, and that's why it glows so brightly, especially at night time, because it's up high enough where it's not affected by perspective. It's always in the presence of the sun at that height. If you're at that height, you'd always be able to see some aspect of the sun as well. The moon is not a luminary. Sometimes these go too fast, and whatever the case, he was still an admiral in the US military. Where did you do your research on flat Earth? I do it all the time. I've been researching alternative theories on all sorts of stuff since I was about 17. I started scouring secondhand bookstores back then and find anything esoteric, even aliens, ghosts, any sort of alternative theories. I basically researched it, even things like witchcraft, not so much because I wanted to learn that sort of stuff. It was as much to know what the enemy knows as to know what you're dealing with and to sort shit from clay, so to speak. So sometimes you feel weird energies occurring to you, then you can sort of find a way then of defending yourself against those weird energies. Brenda says again, sea level, gases at sea level and mountaintops are same, not different. They're in different quantities. We know that. We know there's less oxygen at the top of a mountain. Density separation. Thank you, Michael O'Rourke. Exactly what it is. Well, you have to go to Flat Earth to research. Books, Surfing the Oceans, being a network engineer, etc., etc. If the Earth is flat, why do we have waves? What is the center of Earth? The center of Earth is the North Pole. That's what we call the center of Earth is the North Pole because it's a magnetic center. That's where, because compasses point to the North Pole, that is why all of our maps have basically been made as though that is the center of the Earth. But, the Earth is potentially infinite. It's just that in our particular realm where we are, we consider the North Pole the center because maps are made that way. So as you travel, going, east or west around the North Pole, you're basically making a circle around it. The further away outwards you are, southwards, the further south you are, then the bigger the circle is. So your latitude lines are just bigger and bigger circles around the magnetic center. So what we would call the center of our Earth is the North Pole. And perhaps that's somehow to do with why the sun stays a constant distance outwards from it. So it's always going around the equator, but moving up and down, as I said earlier, to give us the seasons. So that's the center. Density doesn't explain why things fall. Buoyancy is dependent on gravity. Oh, look, I explain this stuff so often. Brenda, I'm going to say this one more time. Density does explain why things fall, because air is of insufficient density to give buoyancy to something of mass. So the thing of mass displaces the air until it finds a place where it finds buoyancy, which is basically the ground. It doesn't, there's no force attracting it. The only force was picking that mass up in the first place. When you let it go, it just goes back to its place where it naturally wants to be, where it's buoyant, just like in any sort of buoyancy chamber. Air does not think buoyancy. Buoyancy in water is not dependent on gravity either. You might be able to develop a formula based on what you think things should be falling at, but it's more of a displacement thing to do with mass and the amount of air within that thing. That was something we discussed quite in depth on the gravity discussion with Team Skeptic on the Non Sequitur show on Sunday. So no one knows what's in the center of the Earth. Most woke people know it's hell. Well, it depends what you mean by center. Are you talking about the center of the surface, or are you talking about what's deep down? It could be a hollow Earth for all we know. It could go forever. Who knows? The furthest the human race has ever dug is 8 miles. That's correct. I can run 8 miles in 1.5 hours. You could probably drop it in a lot faster. Arnold Lane, go, mate. Richard Aindo, man, has only drilled 8 miles. I don't reckon you're correct, but I know you're a top fellow. Well, thanks, Arnold. I don't reckon I'm always correct either. I'm just always going off best theory, greatest evidence, and the way I see it. So, fight the flatards comes back again. You need to have gravity to make buoyancy work. I just explained that. You do not. You just need the mass and the medium, and they work themselves out to find out where the buoyancy level is, depending on the mass of the particular matter. Actually, you have to be burden proof to show your flat Earth theories. That's correct. Well, no, when you disprove the globe and show how impossible it is, then you're left with the. I might find my words too, because I'm speaking too fast. I don't normally speak this fast. When you disprove the globe, the spinning ball thing, and you know that water's 6 level, then you're left with the default position, which is what we see and what we observe. It's not moving, the water finds its level, and land therefore must be that which is measurably above level. And that proves your flat Earth for you. What more proof could you possibly want? So, yeah, debunking the ball is flat Earth proof. Density is not a force. No, it's not a force. But the lack of buoyant force explains why something falls through something else, displaces it. Let's see, is there anybody asked anything sensible now? So what do you call this magic rubber band type force? Magic rubber band type force. I don't think there's any magic rubber band type force, except when you stretch a rubber band out and let it go, that has some stretchiness in it that gets to fly on the wall over there. Here we go. Rob, I guess we've lost a few comments here because it is scrolling through automatically. Sorry, but you 100% need a magical downward force. That's a fact. You're breaking too many natural laws without one. No, I am not. No, you're breaking the law when you pick something up and drop it and believe it needs some sort of force of attraction to drop back down. It's just the lack of the ability of air to support it. That's all it is. And so it takes the path of least resistance to a place where it finds support. It doesn't keep falling once it hits the ground, does it? If you dropped it on the ground, at ground level, it stays at that level. So there's nothing pulling it. It just stays where it is, because an object at rest remains at rest unless you apply another force to it. You applied the force to lift it, but you didn't give it a force to support it because you dropped it in thin air. Thin air is not dense enough to give it buoyancy. Butterflies' wings provide lift. I'm going to hit show on this. I've got a flagged comment here. The mouse works when it wants to. Must be when people use rude words like the F word. He said, butterflies' wings provide lift. Fucktard, Chris. Yeah, in the medium of air. It's as though they're swimming through air because they're light and buoyant enough to be able to swim through the air. Our aeroplanes, on the other hand, need strong thrust in order to gain buoyancy in the air. So I will go back up a little bit. We did that. Polaris never moves. That's correct. And it's directly above the North Pole. So no point in discussing this with you. You'll only agree if you see with your own eyes. No, that's not true. There's a lot of things. Strong Beer says Ross is an Aussie wizard and shaman. I wouldn't say that. I'm alternative, definitely, but I don't follow any particular path, particularly not wizardry or shamanism. I think there's a lot of fakery goes on with them, and a lot of it is also mind-altering substances, especially in the shaman world. And while I think that may have some educational benefits for somebody on the path, I think you're better off seeking the path without artificial hallucinogens, if possible. But yeah, a bit of help from your friends never goes astray. Aussie Jesus, am I allowed to think you've not got any clue? You keep saying that, Arnold. I think we've been through that. The Flat Earth Society theory of pizza flying upwards. No, nobody seriously believes in the pizza model. And this is something I'm going to be discussing with Professor Gaines when I appear on the Non Sequitur show. Possibly not this week, but the following week. Yeah, the whole flying pizza model thing, that is idiocy that comes from lunatics so heavily indoctrinated in their space ball model that all they can then think of next is a space pizza model. No. This flat, stationary planar Earth is the physical bottom of the universe, potentially infinite. Maybe we're inside some sort of cosmic egg type of situation. These things we don't know at this stage. Both theories are as likely as the other. But what we do know is the Earth is flat, and the sun and moon move around above us, as do all the celestials move as one around Polaris. That's the sort of thing we do know. If there's another world of stars in the far south, as they try to tell us there is, I've never seen anybody once, no matter how many times I've challenged them, to stick a camera onto a spinning ball that represents a globe, like hung from a string, for example. So the string would represent the North Pole. We'll just forget about the tilt at this stage because it's neither here nor there for this experiment. Put a camera somewhere that's not directly at the string, somewhere just a little bit away, as we do with our time-lapse filming of stars. Now start your ball spinning and show how the camera can focus on this point and make everything else around it appear to make perfect circles. And put another one facing south at another fixed point on the floor and do it again. Nobody's ever done that. No one's ever taken that challenge because logically, I know logically, it won't happen. It's impossible to happen. That everything around that fixed point is going to be making, at the very least, an elliptical sort of orbit, depending on how far away from the pole you are. You can do this from nearly anywhere between the equator and the North Pole over Earth and align your camera with the North Pole and make perfect circles. So all it's showing is the stars are moving in perfect circles around Polaris and not that the Earth is spinning at all, because it just wouldn't work on a spinning ball. So star trails actually prove the stars are moving. Nothing to do with the Earth moving. I said wizard because of your beard. Yeah, mate, thanks. Beards make people wizards. Another globetards who think butterflies are Jedi bugs. use the Force. Lightning sprites prove permanent. That's quite possible. I'm open to many possibilities, mate. The globe was one of them, but after spending some time really trying to prove for myself that we live on a globe, I can't find any evidence. I can't believe in bullshit. The globe in outer space has so many things wrong with it because of those natural laws of physics. The pressurized atmosphere, the water level, and the lack of detection of any motion of the Earth itself. Relativity does not prove the Earth is moving. Relativity just proves that relative to each other, they're both moving. But it doesn't prove that the Earth itself is moving. Seeing Polaris can't work with a tilt, I agree there again. It should be moving with the tilt, unless, of course, then they conjure up the next thing, which says, but it's so far away that our tilt is irrelevant. That's what they have to do. They have to make everything so big that our puny little human minds can't comprehend it. That's pretty much how all their magic, spinning ball Earth magic works. Christopher says, Globetardians think they're smart, but no one tell them they're the joke. Even they spell they're the wrong way. I'm a bit of a spelling Nazi anyway. When I say spelling errors, they sort of they trigger me because it sort of says to me straight away, "Oh, well, you've either made a typo or whoops." I do it myself all the time. Why is a globe not one of the possibilities? As I told you, Arnold, it most definitely was. I grew up believing in the globe and knowing everything about it. It was part of my spiritual realization was the belief on a globe, that we're on this very special, unique little ball that has exactly all the right things, as they call it. We're in the Goldilocks zone, where this miracle of billions of different life forms exist, and that I am such a special person to be a part of this, to be aware that I'm on a spinning ball going around the sun as the seasons change. This tilt is what makes us warm up and cool down and all the rest. Of course, the globe is one of the things that is part of the possibilities of existence. But as soon as you debunk the globe, then you no longer believe it. It's a simple matter. Once you've gone flat, you do not go back. So, of course I entertain the globe, mate. What's this one trying to show here? Christopher. If I click that one. Globetardians are relatively stupid. Yeah. But then again, I was a globetard myself for many, many years. It's part of growing up and being indoctrinated. What you need to do as you get older is to become self-educated and teach yourself, question everything. If you really genuinely believe we live on a globe, by all means, you're free to believe that. And I don't ridicule you for that until you start to ridicule me. And then I'll start, say, calling you a globetard, for example. But if you genuinely want to know why I don't think it's a globe, then I'll explain it for you, which I've pretty much been doing. So we were all once at that stage of believing we were on a spinning ball. Just as when we were little kids, we believed Santa Claus was real. I use this example a bit in the early days when I first came across that Fight the Flat Earth, Quaig McNeil dude. I'll try to be polite to him from now on, since he's going to be moderating the next show on the Non Sequitur show. Is that he got into fighting the flat Earth because his 9-year-old boy was bullied by one of his ex-friends coming home from school one day, and this other kid's father turned up too, and they're trying to tell him that the Earth is flat. And obviously, I don't think they were bullying him, but they're probably just trying to explain it to him, and it made him cry. And that is why Craig became so anti-flat earthers, because somebody dared to make his 9-year-old boy cry. Now, when my daughter, my lovely little, that one right there, lovely little Jenny, when she was 6 years old, I told her that Santa doesn't exist. Her older brother and sister, those other two just there, they looked at me like, "Dad, what are you doing? Don't tell her." Like, spoiled her fantasy, and it made her cry, and I felt bad, and I thought, "Well, I can't lie to my own dear little daughter. I can't lie." When she's old enough to question this thing, which she did, I told her the truth. I said, "Well, no, Santa's not real. It's something we make up for the little kids to, make Christmas special, sort of thing." And this is what it is with the globe, is that unfortunately, most people grow up into grown adults still believing in the globe the way they believe in Santa. And it is so much harder for them to get over it that they're not going to break down and cry. They're just going to point their finger at you and ridicule you and say, "No, you're a moron, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about." Thousands and thousands of scientists know that. We've got billions of proofs, thousands of pictures. We've known for thousands of years. They've come up with any excuse to keep denying what you were trying to point out to them. There is no proof. You prove it to me. Stop relying on hearsay. Stop relying on authority. Stop relying on things you think authorities have already proven. You prove it. You prove we live on a spinning ball, that water conforms to the outside of a spinning ball in a vacuum of space. You can't prove that, and that's how you become a flat earther, because you genuinely set out to prove it. So that's why I'm a flat earther. Poncho Pete, the truth is the truth. Yeah. Arnold, why don't you go sign up with SpaceX to go farm potatoes on Mars? That's it. They say if you're going to get sent to Mars, well, you're never coming back again. Well, guess what? You ain't going anywhere. But you can certainly be disappear for a long time. Yeah, they've got hundreds probably by now. They've got at least dozens of deep underground military bases, DUMs, as they call them, and they're multiple stories, multiple depths. They've been building them for how many decades, I wouldn't know. Who knows what else exists down beneath us. So if they want to tell you that tell the world they've sent you off in a space rocket and you've never seen again, you can be down the bottom of one of these DUMs for the rest of your life, and you might even be drugged well enough to actually believe in your own heart that you're actually now on Mars. You might be like one of those astronauts from the 60s and 70s who had so much LSD pumped into them and were put in some studio in one of these DUMs, and that they truly believed they went to the moon. "Oh, we didn't know about Van Allen radiation belts. We just flew right on through them. Oh, we must have had the technology. If we did that, then we did that." They're just so mentally indoctrinated in what they believe. um, I watched Neil deGrasse for a laugh, not to learn. Although he's pretty funny. "That shit is not flat." I mean, not curved. It is flat. At least, hey, we all agree on that. So he's trying to sort of say why flat earthers believe it's flat, because even at 128,000 feet, that shit is flat. Now, seriously, when at a distance of 90 miles, there should be a mile of drop. We should be able to see that curve anywhere you can see over 90 miles. There should be a mile of drop left to right. Doesn't exist. There's no drop anywhere. It's not curved. It is flat. Where was I? The fact is, the universe may well be set up as an illusion. No scientists can definitively prove otherwise. They can deduce it's almost infinitely so that. Well, that's true. You can't really prove anything. Solipsism basically says everything is within. Your interpretation of the universe exists in here, or my interpretation exists in here. Yours exists in your version of there. Everything is within. So, to a mentally crazy, say, the artist person who can create weird things but can't tie his own shoes type of thing, their version of reality is just as real for them. So that's an alternative reality. Every reality, every version of it is an alternative reality. The thing with education is it basically forms your mind so that you think like everybody else. Now, the thing is, how do you know that the education that you got was the best education you could have had? That there's not something far, far more to learn. Now, as I said, I was a highly educated and intelligent child, and always at the top of my class, a year younger than everybody else in the class, and I was bored as batshit. I'd always be the first to have everything finished, especially in maths, because all you have to do is just work this shit out. Bam, 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 I'm finished. What's next? And I just get to sit there and I'll read a book or start doodling or something. education is boring and slow, and it's for dullards. I wish somehow there was some higher institute of learning for me when I was a kid, when I was open-minded enough to accept all this stuff. But it's for dullards. It's to create robots who can operate the machines. Monkeys are smart enough to pull the switches and push the levers and pass the tests and wear pretty uniforms and whatever it is they do to make this world go around, all for the profit of the masters. People that are running the world, we're just free-range slaves. They find we're far more profitable when they make us look after our own food, our own housing, our own clothing. Back in the day when I had slaves, at least they took care of those basics for them. Even if they didn't particularly like being slaves, if they shut up and obeyed, they got looked after, they got fed, they got to go to work every day, they got their day off once a week, they got their holy days. You know, nothing's really changed, except now we're free-range slaves, and we're too dumb to know it. G2, Poncho Pete, New Zealand. Oh, hang on, let me go back up. It's gone now. Anyway, I think you said your Prime Minister farmed her own potatoes. And where's it gone? Oh, there it is. And put them in his undies. So you're saying the New Zealand president, I thought it was the Prime Minister there, farmed potatoes and put them in his undies. Anyway, I don't follow politics very much, so I'll leave that alone. It's the story of the emperor and his invisible clothes. Earth's flat. He has no clothes. That could be so. Christopher says, pretty sure going to Mars will be a one-way trip. Well, yeah. Because you can't go to a light in the sky. We cannot go beyond low Earth orbit. It's as simple as that. Even if there is no firmament, no rakia, it is still the density of the gases at that height are insufficient to give buoyancy to any sort of thrusting vehicle flying through it. And if they were able to still keep some momentum through these non-gases, they still wouldn't be able to steer. And according to the laws of density and buoyancy, they're either going to drop straight back down to Earth or come in their parabolic arc, as we see all the rockets do, or if the globe world model is real, the Earth is still spitting off away at 66,600 miles per hour and is leaving that poor little rocket in the dust, and it will never get back up to that speed again to back home. So, bye-bye, little rocket. Would the Golden Globes have to change their name? No, they can still be a couple of clangers for all they want. Michael O'Rourke, yeah, New Zealand doesn't have a president. That is correct. Well, maybe a lot of their clubs and stuff have presidents, you know. Golden Snow Globe. That's a good one. And she is a woman. Spelling error. A lot of people say women when they mean woman with an A. New Zealand doesn't have a female in charge either. I've seen his Golden Globes. Flat Earth's always good for a laugh. A conspiracy of the shape of the Earth was being withheld from him by the world governments. That seemed more appealing, and it made him feel special and privileged. Thus, a flat earther was born. Got this 5 minutes ago. At Fight the Flat Earths, I see where a lot of you people come from, thinking that, you know, when somebody is a bit of a conspiratard, which is another actual theory conspired by the CIA to try and stop people talking about JFK assassination, it came up with the term conspiracy theory to try and silence anybody that questions things. Yeah, I question everything. And so I can see how it might seem appealing to somebody who's not a conspiracy theorist. But I don't believe the governments are really in on it at all. I think they're just as clueless as every other globetard that still believes we're on a spinning ball. They were brought up in the same system for the same amount of generations as the rest of us were, and they just weren't smart enough or had any reason to want to question it. And so they believed their education was good. They got to their position where they were because of their education and their ability to walk over other people to reach the top of the ladder in their political hierarchy. That was their agenda. Their agenda was not to get out in nature and question the truth and understand the nature of reality. That was my job. I didn't get paid for it. I just went out and did it as my service to humanity because somebody had to do it. So don't tell me I'm doing it just because I don't agree with everything the government says. The government means government, control mind, mentality. That's what ment is, the mind. Govern, to rule, to control. The government is there to control our mind. So if they're the authority in charge of the education system, they don't necessarily tell us what the education system. Somebody from above is telling them what to tell us. That's how it works. It's a hierarchy, and you know what's at the top of the pyramid, don't you? Um, the astronauts can't get their story straight. Did they see the stars? Exactly. Come on. They're going through too fast. I scroll a little bit and all of a sudden they jump. Wants to get me up to speed, I guess. The astronauts can't get their stories right. That's exactly right, Regan. She could be tranny. Yeah, don't talk politics on my channel. How dare you? Message is held for review. G2G Poncho Pete posted a link. I'm going to allow that. And he says, watch that. I click show on it, whether it works or not. I've noticed when you go back to chats after the show and try to click show, they say something went wrong. Education is not educational if you can't ask the question why. I agree. You have to ask everything why. And they say, well, because that's what we're told. This blah, blah, blah scientist from blah, blah, blah proved it. So therefore, well, Eratosthenes measured shadows of sticks, and that proved the Earth to as close as we know today. And therefore, you've then appealed to two different authorities. You appeal to ancient authority, and then you say that modern authority has already proven it as well to back that up, to support it. And so therefore, there's nothing to question. And it's like, it's a double, I don't know what you'd call that. It's a double fallacy anyway. It's two appeals to authority saying, oh, well, if we now know it because they've done it and we proved somebody right from doing it 2,500 years ago, then you're a moron if you don't believe that. That's science for you. This is homebrew, mate. I'll read your previous messages. Must have missed a few. And there, click through. Not VB, Coopers. I do have some that are Forex from many years back. I didn't buy them. I had a working holiday. I didn't get many holidays back in the day when I was cleaning pubs, but one of my friends down in Byron, his parents owned one of those high-rise units up at Coolangatta, and so I got to stay in one of the units for 2 weeks free of charge, plus get $500 a week cash for cleaning from 6 in the morning till about 1:30 in the afternoon at the place. So then I had the afternoons free, and that's when my oldest, she was still just a baby, and my wife was pregnant with our second one. And the first thing he did every day was collect all the rubbish. So every day, these places would have a carton of long neck bottles, empty Forex ones, sitting there ready to be taken in the trash. I'm like, cool, hanging on to that. Use that for home brew. So I've got some Forex bottles. Never drink that shit, but I'm a Cooper's man. I'll click on that link one more time. It might have worked. So yeah, I'm sorry if I missed some, Richard, but there's Arnold. Read my previous messages. These globetards think they were taught the truth in grade 1, and now these beta clowns, the conformity feels special, parroting the consensus. That's exactly it, mate. What the E-lights drink, the L eats, the E-lights, everything comes back to L, the elders. Anyway, go and watch that guy whose name I can't think of at the moment because I'm really good with names. He does some really good stuff about L and names, and the English language, and how everything has double meanings. So yeah, they drink brew. That was a good one. Okay. Arnold says, fact is the onus is on you to prove or scientifically propose a way what is observed independently is incorrect. Wrong, sir. The thing is, you have to come up with experiments to prove that your belief is correct, to prove that we are on a spinning ball. If all that we can detect is no motion, that means the Earth is motionless. If all we can do with any experiment to do with water, as far as the eye can see, shows that it's level and contained by higher edges, then the onus of proof belongs to you to prove that it can conform to a curve and show how it curves. If you see a boat disappearing into the distance, which happens because of perspective, then you should, by definition, be able to have a person standing at 90 degrees halfway across the point where, or at the point where it disappears, and he should be able to film this boat going up over this curve of water as you see it visually, and then see it going down over it as you see it disappearing bottom first. That has never been done. Now, that could be done at any lake that is long enough to see a boat disappear over the curve. You should be able to get an independent observer at the same time while both of you are filming. So when the one says, yes, it is now disappearing over the curve, the other one should be able to say, yes, I see it going over that lump of water and disappearing, but it never happens because water is always level. So no, the burden of proof belongs to he who makes the claim to say it's disappearing because of curvature. When you don't understand perspective, when you don't understand that everything beneath you always rises to eye level over a far enough distance, it will do that anyway. Otherwise, you've got nearby objects obscuring that point. You can see in every corner parallel lines sinking downwards, parallel lines rising upwards from beneath. Perspective explains everything without invoking curvature, which does not exist, and it magically disappears when you gain altitude. Anything else, if it's an actual mountain or a mound, that curve never disappears. No matter how high you can get, you can still see it's curved. But this elusive curvature of water magically disappears as you get up. There's no curvature. So, onus of proof, Arnold, comes back to he who makes the claim. Ogco here has shown a link as well. I'll leave it there for Ron later on. There we go. Coriolis effect does not exist. You can prove this yourself. Thank you, Michael O'Rourke. There is actually some tiny amount of truth to the Coriolis effect, and I'd like to explain that one. I might save that again for Professor Games in the next chat I have with him. But it's very, very simple. When you see a boat go through water, you can watch in the wake of the boat vortices coming off, spiraling either side. Well, the same thing is happening in the atmosphere to the air as the sun passes through. Like the sun, obviously, to be traveling 25,000 miles per day, is going at about 1,040 miles per hour. Therefore, in its wake, the air is going to be spiraling off in opposite directions. Some of these suffer what we call the butterfly effect phenomenon. Conditions are right, atmospheric conditions, where some of them turn into big storm cells, and depending on which side of the sun, which side of the equator they form on, that determines which direction they will continue to spin, because an object in motion remains in motion until acted upon by another force. So that's all the Coriolis effect really is. Storm cells spin in opposite directions either side of the equator. Arnold Lane, your turn to address my statement. Was that the one you meant, Arnold? We propose a model of observation. Your job is to counter the claim. Well, I think I've done that. I countered your claim. I've told you that atmosphere can't exist in a vacuum, uncontained. It would seek the path of least resistance to the void. We'd lose all our water. We'd be as bare as the moon. So life would not exist unless we were within an enclosed system of some manner. So Cooper's Brew Kit, Richard. Originally I did many years ago. Now I use a 60-litre drum. I make a double batch of Cooper's, and I make my own recipes to it as well. Like I do add a bit extra sugar, perhaps. I use raw sugar, and I also add quite a substantial amount of raw honey. That's my secret ingredient to making good beer. Is the honey gives a really nice, good, creamy head. The complex sugars sort of mellow it all out and give you a lot of health benefits as well. And when I melt up the sugar, I do it in a big pot first. I also add a lot of different herbs and spices. Nothing illegal, mind you. Once I used a little bit of cannabis leaf just to see what happened. But it's not worth the risk because that stuff stays in your system too long with these draconian laws in Australia. You know, having your license means you've got to determine how much you can drink before you go driving. But if there's still THC in your system, they can detect it days later. So I avoid using that in my brews. But most of the chai spices, cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom, and anyway, I add my own spices to it quite a bit for variety. Oh, and often add ginger as well. Some pretty decent home brews. Maybe I'd rather talk about that than flat earth sometimes. I love brewing my own beer. In fact, I've got one. I just checked it before. I'm going to go and mix up another batch of sugar syrup. Now, here's a good trick if you'd like to home brew. You know how you add your carbonation pellets or little scoop of sugar to each bottle before you bottle it? I no longer do that. I used to do that all the time. It was rather painstaking. In fact, one stage I'd make sugar syrup and I had a cattle drenching gun and I'd squirt some into each and every individual bottle. Then it finally occurred to me, hang on, if I'm bottling the whole lot at one time, why don't I work out what the whole batch needs, mix up my sugar syrup, put the right amount in, stir it all in, and then I can just bottle straight into the bottles. And once I put the cap on, they'll start doing their own carbonation in the bottle and saves a lot of time. It's all about trying to save time with home brewing. It's a very time-consuming process. Michael O'Rourke at G2G Poncho Pete. Sure will when I watch them. I'm onto the tranny agenda. I don't give a fuck about trannies, to be honest. I think each to their own. Do as you will. Just don't harm anybody. You know, trannies are all over the place. So be it. Who gives a fuck? If you want to be with a tranny, fine. If you don't want to be with a tranny, don't. Do as you will. You know? Personally, I think, you know, women are very sexy, but when you get a bloke who's even better at being a woman than women, it's kind of like almost above sexy. I don't know if there's a better term for it, but it's bizarre, you know. Maybe that's part of this Baphomet agenda or something, you know, the whole trickery of the mankind. But I believe back in the day, not that long ago, and part of our hidden history, you know, there was man and woman and there was the androgynous. And that was all just part of normal society. And we're just returning back to normalcy, but by going through this weird Aquarian age process of, you know, getting yourself out there, dyeing your hair, being a weirdo, going against society, because the society we're going against is the same society that has created this bizarre world in the first place, that makes us believe we're on a spinning ball. So we have to reject it in every way and open our minds to every alternative and just be tolerant. You know, just if there's Chinese and they're all the ones that are in Hollywood and so forth, well, be aware of it. Don't fall for their agenda if you don't want to. But hey, if you find something attractive, there's nothing wrong with that. That's what we're programmed to do. You know, we're programmed to be a species that procreates through attraction, mutual attraction. And if we've reached a stage where our population is high enough, then isn't it better that we seek our pleasure without overpopulating it even more? There's nothing wrong with that. You know, I support anybody, whatever their particular gender. You know, I'm basically asexual these days. My fiance, who I've been engaged with for 7 years now, I've only seen her once since we got engaged, and that was 6 years and 6 months ago, pretty much. I've just remained faithful to her. We chat all the time, and such is life. But it takes away that urge when you meet somebody of the opposite sex, or somebody, if you're attracted to the same sex, when you meet somebody that there's no sexual tension there anymore. It's just a meeting of two people. And you might have some mutual attraction, of course. You might do some harmless flirting, but apart from that, you know, the urge to want to exchange bodily fluids with people all the time, to me, that's just really horny teenager type of thing. I'm pushing towards 48 this year. I've done my horny teenager thing. I've had my 3 kids. I've got no urge to have any more. I'd just like to have a nice, beautiful, faithful wife by my side, a faithful companion who can help me out around the house. That's about it. People that focus on the tranny agenda, each their own, I think. Oh, there we go. I was scrolling too fast. Damn it, I was about to say that. These comments, now they finally come. Why couldn't you have all been here slowly a bit earlier so I don't keep losing them? I think I saw Arnold say, okay, it's a bit further down. You could even, well, you could, yeah, Regan says there. You could even fool the astronaut with a convex glass on their helmet from the window of their cupola. Exactly. I just saw one from Arnold, I'm pretty sure, that he said that they've proven it. And again, it's just an appeal to authority that you have proven it. You haven't proven it. That's what we keep saying. If you think you can prove it, prove it. Posted soundly video. Pay attention to the fact the Earth is about 200 miles in circumference due to the brandy water in that video. Exactly. That's just ridiculous. That Lake Pontchartrain would show curvature over, 24 miles or something? 32 miles? I can't remember. What's more ridiculous, bendy water or curved space? I'll pay that, Christopher. If water spins in a different direction in the northern southern hemispheres, all cyclones and hurricanes would die out at the equator. Not sure about that one. Water spinning depends on what force it gets started with. And that's why, as I said, Coriolis only affects air currents either side of the sun's path, either side of the equator, depending what direction they got started in. Once an object is in motion, it stays in motion. So air and water, both being fluids, once they start moving in a particular direction, that's why they keep moving in a particular direction. That's how the Dyson air multiplier, I don't know if you can see that ring just back over there, cheap version of the Dyson air multiplier. It works on that same process. By forcing a bit of air through the ring, it actually traps more air from behind it because everything just wants to go with the flow, especially fluids. Once you get them started in a certain direction, they will keep going and they will keep multiplying until either they do peter out, not just because they get to the equator, because the equator is basically where the sun, once it gets back again to that spot, applies that force yet again. It could keep them spinning even stronger. Yeah, I don't know what you could use to compare, but I guess a bit like if you've got a spinning top spinning, once it starts spinning, if you came across it again and keep pushing it, you just keep it spinning faster and faster. I guess that's the closest I can come with that one. I'm out. Watch out for chemtrails. Okay, Arnold, take care, mate. When was that? 4:15. Fuck, I'm 10 minutes behind him. I just posted a video that shows water curving. You don't believe your own eyes. Okay, you did not. You have thousands of independent observations like that. If chemtrails aren't real, then why don't I leave a breath trail for miles behind me on a cold morning? Chemtrails aren't anything to do with the temperature. Maybe I just go to the bottom. Regan, okay, mate, talk later. Take care. Thanks for joining in. It was good to have somebody to chat with rather than just be sitting here talking to myself like I was the first half an hour. Watson Nugget says Casey has monster and demons and demon sons and demon puppets that torment her and they won't let her tell her mother. Okay, that's interesting. I guess I must have missed something. Did Casey come in here somewhere and say something? I don't know what you're talking about. They must be talking about some Hollywood movie or something. What suburb are you in? You sound very Lismore Nimbin. Thanks, Richard. Very close to Lismore, to be honest. 15 years in Bangalore before I moved here to Clunes, 7 and a bit years ago. 2 years in Byron before that. Port Stephens, Hawks Nest. since I was 13, and before that from Bathurst, out west of Sydney. So I've pretty much been a New South Welshman all my life. Except for a year I spent in Northern California and came back and got laughed at by everyone because I had an American accent. Funny thing is, if you go to America, nobody understands you if you speak in Australian. I went to a place once and said, "Oh, can I have a can of Coke?" And he just looks at me and says, "What?" I said, "I want a Coke." And he was like, "What the fuck, man?" It's like he was going to get ready to jump over the counter and bash me. I said, "A can of Coca-Cola." "Oh, you want a Coke? Well, Coca-Cola." I was like, they speak so slow and exaggerated. I was like, "It's a can of Coke, mate." I thought I was asking for cock or something. Fuck's sake. So you have to learn to speak like them or you're going to get your head punched in by dumbass, small-minded, rednecked. But a lot of Americans are generally very nice people. So on average, their IQ is like this compared to the average IQ in Australia is at least this in comparison. Anyway, I'm not here to knock any particular race of people or race of indoctrinated people as to how their slave masters bring them up to think. Where were we? So yeah, what's a nugget? Okay, well, this is worth looking up a little bit. So, but what's a nugget came in here, and where did you start here? Let's just say, "Da freak, I just watched. This is fake." And then the next thing he says, "Why are you all stupid? I'd be embarrassed if I was you. This I why George Bush was electric twice. So be quitting and get off the stools, please." Uh-huh. Okay, Watson, you convinced me there, but you're fucking mental. You claim to be Christian, but yet dance with the devil himself. Well, who the hell do you think is going to dance with the devil if not Christ himself? Yeah, you know, that's something you have to come to terms with. You don't take down the devil by ignoring its existence. You have to play its game, and you have to play it well. You have to be smart. You have to avoid the conflict. You have to avoid all these minions who want to lock you up, imprison you, ridicule you, do all sorts of things against you, make you even think to yourself that you're insane. If you're going to play the game, you got to play it out to the end. So don't tell me I'm dancing with the devil like. Anyway, let's see. Regan says THC is flat Earth fuel. But admittedly, I will admit, um, I make my own tinctures. Yeah, I get some organic herb. I don't like to smoke. So what I do is, I might froth up, is I just put some in a jar and then get some cheap vodka from Aldi, $24.99 a bottle, and fill the jar up with vodka and put the lid on, turn it upside down once a day for a couple of weeks. Bam, you've got a medicinal tincture. Anytime you feel like you need a bit of relaxant, pain relief, whatever it may be you need to get a little bit stoned for, just take a half a nip from it. If you're really in pain, you take a whole nip. That will give you pain relief for a good 8 hours or more. So before I came on here, I just went and took a little sip, probably a quarter nip really. I didn't need much, just a little bit of, you know, chill out, man. How do you do? And a little bit of sip of some mushrooms I picked the other day. I put them in another jar and then filled it with raw honey on top of that. And that then preserves the mushrooms. And what you find after a while, this liquid sort of comes to the surface. And if you have a little sip of that, that also helps expand your mind a little bit. So you might say I get a little bit of help from my friends, but they're all from nature. None of them is drugs synthesized or made into pill form, anything something like that. My home brew is a natural tonic. All these things help open your mind to possibilities and to consider we don't know everything. What we think we know, the more we know, the more we know we don't know. And when you think you know something, then you are stuck in this place. That's why they call it a degree. And they put a flat hat on your head, black cape around you, because you've reached that degree of learning. That is your level of knowledge. But when you wear the pointy hat of the wizard, you're on a constant journey of learning and knowledge and seeking of wisdom. Scrolling down. THC's photo. You claim to be we did that one. The way these messages jump about as I scroll, it's bizarre. I'm just using this silly little mouse here. Whatever floats your boat. Density and buoyancy cause things to fall instead of gravity. And why do they also fall in a vacuum chamber? That's very simple. Okay, go. 1, 2, 3. I understand what your name means now. I was thinking, go. Okay, go. Well, mate, very simple. Air is of very little density whatsoever. Things just fall straight through it. A vacuum is zero density. So things instantly fall straight through them. Well, not instantly. They still have their physical properties of travel to go through. But yeah, there's no resistance whatsoever. So they just drop until they find a place of resistance that stops them from dropping. What's not hard to understand about that? What's a nugget? Come see Chris's closet as a demon son in the closet that will eat you. What's a nugget? I really think you have some issues there, mate. What is not H2O? Stars not far, 432. I'd say virtually everything has some amount of H2O in it, but probably not fire. Fire sort of consumes the oxygen and transforms pretty much in some sort of alchemical reaction, chemistry basically, but yeah, pretty much reactions are chemistry, or you could consider them alchemical. And this is why I don't get into people talking about formulas all the time. What's the formula for this, the formula for that? This is all alchemy and wizardry, basically, if you need to do it off a formula. I prefer to do it the more natural, organic way and say if you add the yeast and the sugar together in the water and the other things you've added to it for the flavour, it'll make beer. It ferments. The sugar basically gets eaten by the yeast and it turns it into ethanol. The ethanol then absorbs the medicinal qualities of the herbs and spices and everything else within it to make some sort of tincture. And when you drink it, they're easily absorbed into your body. So you become part of that living essence of that plant that went into making what you had. We are basically the alchemist of the plant world. When we're the ones that transform plants into higher consciousness by absorbing them into our system and being living, intelligent beings able to transform the world around us. All these alchemists are trying to do other things like turning lead into gold. That's somehow their goal. The gold is the knowledge, what you hold within. You want a gold crown on the outside of your head? Insanity. That's for materialistic, insane people who just want to own things, to have possessions, to be possessed by the things that own them. I'm not into that sort of thing at all. Yes, I've got a lot of possessions and a lot of stuff, but everything at some point or another had a purpose. So, I'm just going to read some more comments now. So, what is not H2O? Fire. There you go. You got 4 basic elements: earth, air, fire, water. When you put them together, as they used to do inside the circle that represents the sun, it all comes back down to sun worship, and you put the cross in the middle of your circle, that's where you get your divisions: earth, air, fire, water, the 4 elements. But when you put them together into the Holy Trinity, it's more like a quadrupity. I'm not sure what the word for four is. The four unity. You get the fifth element, life. We are the living essence of all the elements combined together. That is why we are considered the children of God. We are the holders of knowledge. You don't have to be indoctrinated with it from authorities to be an authority of knowledge. You just have to be open to anything and everything and understand knowledge, understand where it comes from, be the living essence of the four angels. That's what they are. They are angels. Angels, if you wish, but every living thing is the fifth element. The fifth element is what many people consider the God nature or the spirit nature. This is the sort of stuff I was trying to touch upon in the non sequitur show today, but we haven't really gotten there at this stage. But this is what spirit really is. People say, well, can you prove the spirit world, the spirit creators? I say, well, can you prove a thought? Can you see a thought? Can you touch a thought? You can't touch a thought. A thought is a spirit. The living essence is a spirit. When something dies, the spirit has left the shell behind and the shell starts to decay. So the spirit is very much alive. It is the fifth element. And that is what we are composed of. And when you are in tune with all the elements, earth, air, fire, and water, when you've paid your penance, that's the word penance comes from, 5 pentacles. When you've done your penance and you've had your sins forgiven, when you're attuned with the angels of air, the angel of water, the angel of sunlight, the angel of the living Mother Earth, then you too can become the living word of the living God. This is one of the things I wanted to talk about, but I'm digressing, probably going too far at the moment. And Michael O'Rourke says, when they push the transgender and gay agendas through my kids' school, what are we supposed to do? Teaching kids they have 2 virginities, one for girls, one for boys. Bugger that. Yeah, I agree. Kids don't need to know about all this stuff with sex and whatnot at such a young age. They let kids be kids. Let them do what they want to do. You know, if boys want to dress up as girls and vice versa, let them do that. But try and shape them in the direction you'd prefer to be as a parent. You can't do much about the school agenda, so that then becomes the responsibility of a responsible parent to take charge. And if you don't agree with the school that your children are being sent to, homeschool them. Yeah, that's the role of a parent, is to make sure that you raise your children the way you think they should be raised, and don't allow authority to override your personal opinion of what your children should be. And that's the trouble with schools. That's what they're doing, generation after generation after generation. The chemicals they put in our water, the chemicals in the vaccinations, the chemicals in all the food, they're weakening men, they're destroying the fertility of women. They've got an agenda trying to destroy us as a species, a highly intelligent species, the true children of God, not the chosen ones by the great deceiver. Don't get me wrong, the great deceiver exists, and his chosen ones are the ones chosen because of their deceptive ways, the way they deceive us, the way they infiltrate us in our food, our medicine, every single little thing from childhood onwards. So we're growing up idiots in an idiotic world because we've allowed this to go on for generations. So we have to wake up to that agenda. And if you start speaking the names of them, all of a sudden you'll find your channel getting shut down. We've seen it happen to Owen Benjamin. You know, he's a freaking genius, that guy. He's brilliant. Love to have half the talent he's got. But he got his channel shut down because he didn't shut his mouth. He wasn't smart enough. He kept tempting and pushing and poking. And eventually, well, they took 2 months of his bloody income off him. You got to think, dude. You got to be smart. You got to be smarter than them. That's why they hate us so much, because we are smarter. They hate the white man we are smart. And so they have done everything they can to infiltrate every society we've ever had, to mix all the cultures together, to create racial hatred, which I don't hate other races whatsoever. I've got no problem. I love my Aboriginal brothers and sisters. I love my African brothers and sisters. I love my Northern European brothers and sisters. I love you all. But that's not to say that I shouldn't have some own pride in my own race, the way that you should have pride in your own either. This isn't white hatred or Nazism or any of this sort of bullshit that they've been programming us with for generations to make us think that we should be hating ourselves because they hate us so much. That's what they want us to be doing. So I'm going to read another comment now and change topic again. I can't read your stuff. What's a nugget? Yeah, I'm pretty good at reading people's typos and their Chinglish, as we used to call it, when you read the instructions from your thing from China. You're black. Maybe you have dark skin, but that's just skin pigmentation, mate. Strong Beer says Owen Benjamin is a hack, but I'm okay with it because it's bigger than me. Fight the Flat Tart seems to know that black people have huge dongs. Yeah, there's no such thing as black or white. The chemtrail sign over there, it's got a white background. Ooh, look, you can't see my hand through the background because I'm white. No. I have Aryan blood in me. It's quite possible, in my opinion, that I have Druidic blood, that I've come from a long line of ancestors of the people who made this world once great. There's lots of evidence of this race of long-bearded, pale-skinned men who used to travel the world and share their wisdom and knowledge and brought things like alphabets and numeracy, civilization to some of these cultures. That you see there's some of these remnants of buildings, but most of what's been happening in this agenda over the last at least 100 to 200 years is to destroy all this culture, burn it all down. Where are the great cities of the past, such as Heliopolis? Have you ever heard of Heliopolis? It was once the most blooming city, the place where Jesus himself went to study at the church of what they called the secret brotherhood. It's not an evil thing. Somehow they've twisted our history to make us fear Illuminati, to fear understanding of wisdom and knowledge. We should be seeking to be illumined, to become enlightened, each and every one of us. But instead, we're somehow told, oh, they're the evil baby killers or something. No, Jesus received his Christhood by studying at the secret brotherhood at Heliopolis, where he took the vows and he passed all their tests, one after the other, and became the Christ. Very few reach such levels. Today, well, we've got the internet now. We don't have to travel the world from one school to another, but we have to keep discovering our hidden and lost knowledge. And so I strongly suggest each and every one of you to research things such as Tartaria and the mud floods. You will find so much information there. I mean, this is currently what's fascinating me, and I won't even begin to touch upon that. All I know is that we have a lost culture that was highly advanced, free energy. People were not slaves. People were free. And this has all been taken from us. Generations have been wiped out. History has been destroyed. And that is why we accept the world that we are presented with, as we are told in the Truman Show. We have so much left to remember. What is memory? Me more. He. More me. The more you remember, the more you become. So having a beard makes you druidic. No, it just shows my atheist dominion. Oh, hello, atheist dominion. Haven't seen you in a long time. How you going, bro? Having a beard doesn't make me druidic at all. My ancestry does, and who I may well have been in past lives makes me consider I'm druidic. Somebody once said that to me years back, and it was just a bit of a joke. I said, yeah, because I'm born on the winter solstice. They said, oh, you're a druid. And I said, yeah, okay, maybe. The more I discover, the more I learn about myself, the more it's possible there are druidic influences. Hey, we all come here for a reason. What's a nugget? Yeah, I don't believe you. Elizabeth says all parsley's to heaven, or whatever you can call in peace, and Elizabeth went to hell. I don't know Elizabeth, sorry. And I haven't been to hell to see if she's still there. So. Strong beer, yeah, you said I was a wizard earlier. Well, it's sort of connected in a way. Wizardry, druidry. These guys were respected as some sort of gods wherever they travelled, simply because, well, they looked different to start with, and they brought technology which helped them stop living in little village huts and stuff and started building these massive, amazing, architecturally brilliant buildings, which we don't even do today. To this day, we build these steel and concrete pieces of junk that barely last a few, decades before they have to be demolished and rebuilt again. These stone buildings that they were building hundreds of years ago are still standing to this day, apart from places like where they've been bombed into the ground, like in Germany, some of the greatest cities in ancient Tartaria. They've been destroyed by this evil influence, by the chosen people wanting their promised land, which they've now got, Israel. Merlin the Wizard was a druid. Yeah. Yeah, I used to have the book years back called The Way of Merlin. I don't remember if I ever read the whole way through it. I lent it to a mate, and he ended up getting a lot out of it. Check my videos, it will explain me. Okay, what's a nugget? Maybe I'll check your videos. You haven't really said much that convinces me so far. It makes me give you a lot of credibility, to be honest. But, grammar does matter a lot to somebody like myself. If you can type coherently, we all make typos, of course, but if you start typing in that bloody was-art type lingo, you've lost credibility for me. Richard Angdow has posted another link. I'll click show on it for those who want to be bothered clicking on it. I don't click while I'm chatting. Thank you very much. Click the link, Earth spinning from space. Come on. You really believe those cartoons and CGI, mate? Are you aware of the Hidden Space Program and the Black Anti-Gravity Project? Oh, shit, yeah. Yeah, I was right into that sort of stuff many years back. But I think what you will find is that all this technology is still Earth-based, even if it's not necessarily from the part of Earth we're familiar with. A lot of it can be from deep underground, deep under ocean, far across Antarctica, interdimensional, but I do not believe in physical other existence apart from the physical realm that we're upon. Everything above the firmament is in a different realm, a different dimension, if you wish. They call it waters above. I think it's more a different type of water, different essence, so to speak. Just as, say these undersea deep divers in their little submarines went so far down at some places, they found what we call undersea lakes, and it looked just like a lake of water underwater. They couldn't really understand that. Like, to me, I sort of think maybe it was just, say, a lake of mercury. That kind of makes sense to me. But whatever it was so dense that when they went to descend into it, they bounced off it, and it made ripples across the surface, which hit the shoreline in little waves type of thing. So to me, anything above the firmament is kind of like that, but on the opposite end of the scale. So we can't really go there because we're physical. Once you ascend into a higher vibrational rate of being and turn back into a light being, then you can ascend into that realm and find your, say, seat in heaven, be another star in its place with its family, constellations in your familiar group. That's just one of my speculative ideas. Of course, I got no evidence for that, but I like to think it has some sort of poetical, intuitive truth to it. Who knows? What's a nugget? When you drop names on my channel, mate, see, I'm an independent thinker. So when you say Princess Brew, like I'm supposed to know what you're talking about, it's meaningless to me. And you keep saying this Casey, meaningless, meaningless, meaningless. I think you might find a better place to go and spread your nonsense than here, mate. Like I reckon, if you believe that, you're too far gone. That's it. Yeah, I used to believe bloody Sesame Street when I was a kid, and every morning I'd wake up and I'd turn on Sesame Street, and I'd think to myself, this is how I made sense of it as a little kid. It was still black and white telly, mind you. I think all these little people would sneak in through the house at night while I'm sleeping and get into the box and perform their little shows for me. That's what I believe. And then I went to a friend's house one day, or a babysitter or whatever it was. I was like, how did they get in your television as well? Magic, this is bizarre. And so then they had to explain to me how television works. So, you take things one level at a time. So eventually you stop believing the cartoons, you stop believing the puppet shows, you stop believing the things you're told as a kid, and then you start to work everything out for yourself once you've got enough base groundwork to work from, intuition. So you can start to think, well, hang on. So if all of these things are a deception, what else could possibly be a deception? If they can broadcast images into our televisions, can they broadcast them into our minds? Can they broadcast them through other means, say like in the classroom, the chalkboard, the teacher who's got their degree of learning? How many degrees do you need to be a top level Mason? I think you need 33. The same age they tell us Jesus died on the cross. And the number 33, power number, that keeps coming back all the time. Jesus is obviously, I believe he once existed as a natural healer who went around and did a lot of good for the world, but somehow when he became the predominant religion because of other people believing in him, or the Christians, they then mixed all these different things into all the old pagan religions, all the old sun worship religions, and made him, again, another one of these sun deities, where the sun is in the center, surrounded by the faithful 12 apostles, 12 houses of the zodiac, the constellations. And so it's still more another version of, oh, don't tell me. I got work tomorrow. Ooh, lucky slave, little me. Might be able to pay me rent next week after all. Everything comes back to sun worship. So whether they call it Jesus, whether they call it Heliopolis, whether they call it Mithra, whether they call it Lucifer, Lucifer the light bearer, it's all Lucifer worship. And they just rename it to try and placate the multitudes through the ages, twist it all around. And that's why we have modern Christianity today, making us think that Jesus and Lucifer are the same thing, the Son of God, born 3 days after it dies in the south on the 22nd of December, the winter solstice. When so far south it dies on the Southern Cross. And after 3 days, it returns again. So we celebrate the birth of the Son of God on December 25th. All sun worship. But when you come into Christ consciousness, you realize that. And you realize, oh, well, Jesus was probably a Leo. He was probably born in about August or something. He may have been a Virgo. That also makes sense. But, all of our history is a big fat lie. So until I get to the bottom of it, I'm not going to extrapolate too much on that. Kindred, research kindred, hard to find what the answers are there. Kindred. Well, there is a relationship there. Like kindle also means fire, and familiar is often associated with spirits who are familiar with, but it's also where the word family comes from. So I will research that, kindred. Thank you for that. That's a good question. Kindred also means family. Pyramid also means fire, amid, within. So fire within is what pyramid literally translates as. The sun and pyramids have always had a strong correlation with sun worship, and sun also being associated with Lucifer, which also is associated with fire and light and all the rest. So fire within, pyramid, son of God. There's a huge relationship coming together here. And I believe our ancient ancestors were sun worshippers, but they worshipped it as the son of God. That's why I think the Lucifer rebellion stuffed everything up, because we worshipped the sun as God. And as soon as we did that, we had committed a major sin towards the Creator, whose greatest angel, Lucifer, the son of God, now gets into his head. These people are worshipping me as God. And so it inflated his ego to say, well, therefore, I am as great, if not greater, than God. And that's what created the wars in heaven that led to the great destruction in the first place. And whoever the great deceiver was, the one whispering in the ear, the worm tongue, that would be the great deceiver, who is now imprisoned in the depths of this earth and is running the show, because he's very good at what he does. And there's still some sort of competition going on. And I believe it's to convince all of mankind to worship the great deceiver, or even to follow the great deceiver's deception, to worship the Son of God as God. And as soon as all mankind are doing that, then the bet has been won by the great deceiver. And for some reason or another, the Christ, the Logos, is very forgiving and very tolerant, because obviously it has to follow the first law, which says, destroy not that which God has created. So as much as they want to destroy this great deceiver who's deceived all of mankind, and who knows what percentage of the angels, it would go against God's own decree to destroy. So all you can really do is keep pushing them down, in prison. Like the flat earthers, just saw a comment pop up there. I haven't read anything above it, but it says, I live in a pyramid. That makes no sense, really. A lot of these pyramids, if you actually follow the structure of them, they were demon traps. They were designed to attract the demons into them and push them down. There's the inverted pyramid underneath, where it's an inescapable sort of prison, and that's what keeps them held deep underground in indestructible structures the size of the great pyramids. And there are many pyramids all over the world. These are designed to get rid of the evil entities which had been imprisoned in this realm, and because they had nowhere else to go, they'd come and inhabit people's bodies, or bodies of animals, or trees even. And so that's why it's the job of the enlightened ones to come along and trap them back where they belong, in the deepest depths below this surface that we dwell upon, which is supposed to be paradise. Yeah, what's a nugget? You're just warbling and telling garbage here, I think, mate. So I just allowed a link there, and now I lost where it was. What's a nugget? Let's just read some of his nonsense. Madame Gazelle said to the class, if they screamed, she would shoot them, because in Casey's room, if you scream at the demons, etc., they will torment you. You've got some issues, Mr. Nugget. I'll give you that, but and fight the flat-tards. He's not that tolerant, otherwise he wouldn't send you to hell. Scientologists. I can't see the correlation what you're saying there. But we're nearly going for 3 hours here. It's time I wound this down. So tolerance means that you will not destroy that which is created, and will give the opportunity to redemption if you pay your penance. As I said, penance and pentacles have something in common. If you get the opportunity to be reborn back into a living being, as we are all here, right now, we've combined the elements of earth, air, fire, and water to become the fifth element, which is life. So you have been granted an opportunity to redeem yourself. How do you redeem yourself? You serve God by serving man. You don't serve your selfish self. You don't collect more bad karma. You go out and you do your best to help one another, whether that be sharing your knowledge, just by giving a kind word, just by being friendly to one another, helping out where you can. You don't have to do this stuff publicly. You don't go and film yourself going and giving meals to the homeless and then bragging to people about what you've done. You do what is right because you know what is right. And you earn that little badge within yourself that inflames your own pyramid, your own fire within. And then you walk around with that as the strength of your conviction wherever you go. Build up your own fire. Don't give it away. Just be a true good person. Thank you, Michael O'Rourke. It was a good chat, hey. I came out with a few things I didn't expect I was going to. Yeah. I don't even want to mention those words out loud because there are power in words. Just remember that. Words are swords. What did Jesus say? I didn't come here to bring peace, but a two-edged sword. And the two-edged sword, or the two edges, S, swords, in between is the word. So for those who understand the word, you will see there are two edges. For some, it's cutting them away. For others, it is cutting the path to righteousness. So be wary of your words. I know I often forget and say a lot of things I probably shouldn't, but words are swords. We're here to be the living essence, to allow the light of God to shine through us by contacting your angels, earth, air, fire, water. Get to know them, be one with them, and become the living word of the living God. And you will know the truth. You'll be able to speak the truth. You will be fearless. You can walk into a den of lions and you will walk out alive because they won't touch you. I'm going to leave with one little thought here. Is that last night I had some amazing dreams. I often dream and often have some really cool ones, but last night was bloody awesome. It had a lot to do with an elephant. We all know what elephants are like. Big, somewhat dangerous sort of creatures. And I can't remember a lot of it. I only remember the final few scenes of the dream, so to speak. But I know that something was involved. And because of my fearlessness, I somehow assisted this particular elephant, a really bloody big one. Then at the end of the dream, I'm sort of walking away, and I hear the elephant approaching again from behind. So I turn to look at it, and I'm looking, and it's like, you have to be fearless in front of the elephant. And I was like, hello, and it just came and lifted its trunk. It came on my head 3 times, and I just looked at it and I said, thank you, sir. I recognize the God within you. The God is within all living things, most especially within yourself. Take care, see you around, and just keep searching for truth, whatever it may be. Don't be afraid of it. Truth is an elephant charging at you, but if you're afraid of it, it will trample you. If you stand your ground, you will know the power of one.